Hello, everybody. My name is Jake Valentine. I'm joined by Logan Mitchell. That is not Logan Mitchell on the left, or Cal Kepi on the right. That's Taylor Gunn. There we go. Kind of, sort of. Taylor Gunn, the Mardu vehicles versus Chris Lamaster. D told me he's playing Blu-ray Control. Logan, how are you doing today so far?
Not too bad.
Glorious, normal March day
Yeah,
in Cincinnati.
this weather is throwing me off, man. It was like 70 on this past Friday, then it was like snow on Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to
and
snow this
Saturday,
weekend.
And then it's been in the 60s all this week. This was just snow again this weekend.
It's only 40 today. Taylor's on the play, which is very important for this Mardu deck, as we're going to start here. Concealed Courtyard. Chris with a wandering fumarole and passing back the turn. It's a very good chance Taylor has no idea what Chris is doing, because, fumarole is a very popular play for any type of control deck, like the Jeskai Sahili, but Chris is smarter than I am, so he's probably not playing Jeskai in Taylor's mind. Only I'm dumb enough to play Jeskai Sahili still. A walking ballista there in turn 2 for Taylor, and passes it back to Chris, who will draw a Fevered Visions, which is awful in this matchup.
Yes.
Though he does have the Cathartic Renegade to presumably discard that and some Stitch Wings. He's got both Stitch Wings, though. He's going to pitch
one Stitch Wing
2.
and maybe the Fever Visions
Yeah.
might not be a terrible plan, but it looks like we're going to go both Stitch Wings instead.
He drew 2 lands at a Tormenting Voice and just
Yeah.
passes it back to Taylor, who will draw. Currently no actual red mana, but he has a second Ballista in hand and a Toolcraft Exemplar, so it's not the worst that Taylor gets in there for 1. Pushes Chris down to 19. It's a Hardikirin. Taylor realizes that, hey, I should use this fight for this Toolcraft instead of this Hardikirin. Like a smart person, just passes it back. So Chris draws a Mountain for the turn. Not the best draws here for Chris thus far. I'm sure he'd love to find a closer to turn as soon as possible.
I'm sure you'd love to find any threat as soon as possible.
I mean, he can bring out the Stitch Wings, but he's not discarding anything to them.
Yeah.
This game can get real out of hand real fast if he just passes it back. If nothing you've noticed there, other than bringing back a Stitch Wing, as Taylor draws a Spire of Industry, so all 3 colors fully online now. Taylor announces he wants to put the trigger for Toolcraft in the stack to allow him to crew the Heart of Karen. Gets in there for 5, puts Chris on the 14. Very important to put your triggers in the stack properly.
Yeah.
Thankfully, these players have no language barriers. We're all American. We all speak the same language. He follows it up with a Walking Ballista on 2, and Chris is going to end a turn, bring back a Stitch Wing. But again, no real good discard targets.
Tormenting Voice and Fevered Visions. I feel like Fevered Visions just is not a good card in this matchup.
No, because Taylor's playing out his hand, and that he's going to be empty-handed, and
Yeah.
it's not going to do anything. Chris does have an answer to the Heart of Karen in the form of not Harness Lightning, the Lightning Axe in hand.
Yes.
So he could theoretically Tormenting Voice away some cards, draw some cards, and he's got 2 Lightning Axes, so Chris is good to go in terms of taking care of that vehicle, but the important play for Taylor, though, is he's able to activate Revolt off his Fatal Push thanks to the Walking Ballistas at any moment as Chris gets in there with the Stitch Wing.
Is it an Elder Deep Fiend in Chris's hand as well?
Not sure. I don't think so. I think it's like... No, that is. Yep, he's got one. Be curious to see when he wants to go for that.
Yeah.
Taylor plays another land. It's land 5 for Taylor. Taylor does not want to play 5 lands, ever. But he's going to get the crew up, and he's, in theory, attacking for a lot. And here he comes, and Chris says, I'm going to respond to attacks. So here's a Deep Fiend. He's going to merge off the Stiff Wing. He's going to presumably tap all 4 of Taylor's creatures. We might see the Sanctum trigger 2. Yep, Chris announced that he's floating a colorless. Not sure if he's going to trigger it yet, though. Yep, there we go. So he's going to attempt to tap down Taylor's board and trigger Sanctum for Ugin, allowing him to search up another colorless card, which in this case is going to be Elder Deep Fiend. Since we're not Logan Mitchell, so we can't, just go grab some Tron pieces at the top of our deck. You had some stupid top decks yesterday.
Yeah, those top decks were insane.
For those who missed it last night, Logan's playing against Kyle Kipping on Abzan. Kyle did a good job of managing Logan's threats with some timely path exiles and some discard spells, and it didn't matter because Tron is Tron.
Yes. Top decking an Ugin when you have infinite mana in play and no cards in hand just feels amazing.
It's pretty much nut.
Just feels amazing.
So meanwhile, all Taylor has left is this Fiddle Push. This is a Lightning Axe taking out the still crude Heart of Karen. In that line earlier, we talked about how Taylor could Fatal Push away a 3 or 4 drop from Chris. Doesn't matter here because Elder Deep Fiend cost 8 mana, so those ballistas aren't doing much of anything as
He draws
Chris draws
one.
another Deep Fiend, so we're going to change some Deep Fiends here possibly. I mean, Chris just attacks and passes here, right?
Does he have 2 more in his hand?
He's got 2 Deep Fiends, a Lightning Axe, and a Tormenting Voice.
Gross.
Taylor is at 12 though, so that's only 15 points of damage represented.
Yes.
This is where this card at Fever Vision comes in handy too, because again, Taylor has a 1 dead card in his hand, so he's essentially top decked as he takes 5, goes down to 12. And the turn we're going to make Ballista a little bit bigger. Currently able to do 4 damage, needs to do 6 total to kill a Deep Fiend. Taylor should be at 12, I believe. Here's Deep Fiend number 2 from Chris as Taylor attempts to go to attacks. Did not get a good look at the card he drew.
It appears to be a land.
Oh, that's not what he wanted at all, so for Taylor's sake, hopefully it's not a land.
So it looks like we're tapping down the walking ballistas and both of the black sources. So that way if Taylor wants to use black mana, he either has to take a life or use an energy.
He's going to response, add another counter to the Ballista. So that's 5. He can almost kill, he can next turn kill a Deep Fiend. Looks like Taylor's going to get frisky and attack here with these 2/3/2s.
Oh, he has another one in hand.
Yeah.
That you could potentially block with.
And even if he doesn't, well, Chris just takes it. He goes to 8. It's pretty risky with 5 damage on the field right now. Taylor just passes the turn as Chris draws a Fumarole. Would you have blocked there with that Deep Fiend to stay above a 10? With, again, 5 points of damage on the board with those 2 ballistas?
Probably. Because the Deep Fin survives.
Oh, it'll die from one of the ballistas,
Yeah,
I
you're
guess.
right.
But he can still harm it. He can still lightning axe a ballista before damage.
Yeah.
Or for 4 blocks, rather. I don't know, Chris seems pretty locked into chaining these Deep Fiends to victory. It's an attack with Deep Fiend number 2. Taylor goes to 7.
So I think the line for Taylor, if he during combat, if before he goes to combat, Chris plays the third Elder Deep Fiend, let Chris declare where he wants to put the tap targets, and then potentially just ping Chris to death with one ballistas.
Important note here, Taylor plays an Aethersphere Harvester, so Taylor cannot put the 6th counter on the between the ballistas.
Right.
As he raises his hands and go, Jiminy Cricket, you have 3 Deep Fiends. You gotta think now maybe the 4th is on Taylor's radar.
Yeah.
I don't think he targeted the 4/4 ballista.
I don't think he did either.
Taylor seemed very
Intrigued.
perplexed.
Looks like he did not.
No.
Looks like he targeted.
Targeted Aethersphere Harvester to do 2 crafts in the 1/1. Interesting. Here's that Toolcraft Exemplar. And just a passing of the turn. Again, Chris is at 8. Here's a Lightning Axe. Imagine he's discarding. Yep, discards the Fumarole. So he's to pay 1, discard a card to take 4, it looks like.
Yes.
Yep, Chris goes from 8 to 4 after Taylor just shoots him down the face. So Chris needs some help here at the top of his deck, and it's going to be a Stitchwing. I don't think. Yeah, Chris is like, I'm going to look at 2 fresh cards here. And Tormented Voice, that's not going to do it here.
No. I believe. Yeah.
It really needed that Cause Extra Turn or some sort of board sweeper as Taylor Gunn takes game 1 on the back of 2 Ballistas and 3 Toolcraft Exemplars, overcoming the triple Deep Fiend hand. As Taylor praises the Deep Fiend there, it's so obnoxious sometimes to play against.
It can't be more obnoxious than playing against Emrakul, though.
No, I mean...
Because Emrakul took any skill out of...
I mean, in the green-black deck, you have to still work for it and stabilize, and the Marvel deck obviously is like, hey, here we go, turn 4.
Right.
Whereas the finely tuned Deep Fiend decks back then really turn 4. Well, you do nothing, and I'm going to bring back all these idiots and wipe your board, and let's repeat the process 3 more times, and that was fun. The standard was stupid during Eldritch Moon.
Agreed.
I say that as someone who played Band Company for the entirety of Shadows to Eldritch Moon. So speaking of stupid, we have a banned restrict announcement coming up on Monday morning.
Yeah.
Taylor doesn't think anything's getting banned.
Thinks nothing gets
He
banned?
thinks nothing gets banned, which is...
Interesting.
Yeah. It is a possibility just because they just did 3 bannings and they don't want to scare people away.
Right.
I can see them banning Gideon just because originally when they're designing Amonkhet, Gideon wasn't in the standard format, so there's no answers to it. So like, hey, these new cards are coming out in the spring and none of them answer Gideon, so goodbye Gideon. I can see them banning Ballista just because it goes in literally every deck. I mean, look what happened with Mardu. Like, hey, let's make this Proto-Wording deck better. And if you do that, though, you have to ban part of the Saheeli combo since Ballista is such a really clean, effective answer to it.
I read an article. I don't remember off the top of my head who wrote it. I believe it was on Twitter. Somebody made a case for banning Felidar Guardian, Gideon, and Walking Ballista.
I could see banning Gideon, Felidar Guardian, Walking Ballista. Those are the 3 quote-unquote problem cards. Apparently we can't hear you. Huh. I know, right? Interesting. But you can hear me. Thankfully I'm doing most of the talking here. I'm going to try to pull up the stream so we can... Let's have you talk about some things here, Logan, for a bit while we listen to some offhand audio as these players shuffle up in sideboard. Go ahead, let's say some things.
Yeah, so I could see a case being made to ban Gideon. I feel like in just about any white deck in the meta right now, it sees play aside from the Saheeli combo.
There we go. Your mic is too far away from your mouth.
Got it.
You have that nice, small, compact face. I have that big, fat face where it doesn't matter.
I weigh 12 pounds soaking wet, so.
I'm Fat Mac, so. Chris will be on the play here, which is super important. Taylor looks like he's bringing in some Planeswalkers here to go a little bit bigger. I think that's Chandra and Nahiri in hand with some removal spells as Chris again starts with Fumarole, passes it back. Taylor's going to spend some energy, play a 2 Exemplar. Pretty good starts there from both players. Kind of interesting, though, to see what Taylor's mana base is. As Chris is going to discard a Stitchwing. He's going to draw some cards. That's what he wants to be doing. That's not what Taylor wants to do. It's attack for 1.
That is not at all what Taylor wants to do.
There's no 2-drop either. This is... Does Taylor have a 3rd land in hand? He does, okay.
He does have a 3rd land in hand.
He's able to play the Spirit Officer at least and hope for a chance to get the 4th mana for that Planeswalker. Though...
Chris does have 2 Elder Deep Fiends in hand, it looks like.
I think there's a Saint Bukin in hand too for him. There's the white source. That was gigantic, because now he has a Spire to back it up with, so... He's got all his colors in line for those planeswalkers. That's an attack for 3 this time. Chris down to 16. And the turn's going to bring back the Stitchwing. What's he going to discard? Ugh. He's looking at, 2 Deep Fiends. Looks like a
No, it is a Deep Fiend and a
Sanctum.
Sanctum of Ugin.
He's looking at Tormenting Voice, Cathartic Union, Land, Deep Fiend, and Collective Brutality, maybe? He discarded what looked like to be one of the draw spells on a land. And draws a land to replace it.
I'm pretty sure it's not Collective Brutality because he's not playing black.
Defiance?
Possibly.
Or the red collective card. That's what's his hand. I don't know. You know what card's not in his hand?
What's that?
Calls extra turn. That's a
True.
card that should be in his hand. That
True.
needs to be in his hand.
He might not have any game 1. Which I could see a case being made for not playing any game 1, but I feel like game 2 you definitely want some number of them,
Yeah.
especially against the Mardu vehicle stack.
Where Taylor has wisely sideboarded in a manner that it wouldn't matter because he's got, again, those 2 planeswalkers in hand.
Right.
And Chris has no counter magic. He's got the burn spell with the collective Defiance. But against 2 planeswalkers, especially ones that have such a high loyalty like Nahiri and Chandra, it might not matter. Then he just discards it, so it doesn't matter either. Or is that a Fiery Temper? That's
It is a Fiery
That's the
Temper.
Fiery Temper.
Promo.
So what Chris is asking here is that since he's discarding it, how does it work with the Madness? And Madness is a triggered ability.
Yes.
So it will have a trigger, so he gets to put it on the stack. Chris sounds like he wants to make sure he knows what he's drawing before dealing some damage, but it does not work that way. So he's going to kill the draft and then draw 3 cards. One of them released in Gremlins, one of them a Deep Fiend, maybe?
Looks
No.
like 2 lands.
2 lands
and
released
release
Gremlins,
yeah.
None of those cards answer any of these planeswalkers here.
No.
Taylor's going to take 1 off the Spire.
So do you play the Nahiri or do you play the Chandra in this situation?
The Nahiri, just because it has 6 loyalty. And can exile that too, I guess. The exiling there is big game. Because otherwise it just keeps coming back and back, and now it can't. Chris draws a land for the turn.
Well, that's true. I guess Chris could have played the Deep Fiend this turn by sacking the Stitchwing as well.
Yeah, true.
Um,
And then Taylor gets time walked. Well,
yes.
as time walked as he can with the Nahiri on the board, as Nahiri bites the dust thanks to Ephemeral, but that's Chris's entire turn, and now Taylor's going to untap, and he's going to play Planeswalker number 2.
So Taylor's sitting here trying to figure out what he wants to do with this Chandra.
I mean, his hand's not the best. He's just going to finally reveal a non-land at the top. Yeah.
Shock you.
That was the reverse order of cards there from Taylor. He wanted to draw the Thalia and reveal the land.
Yes.
Yeah, 15 Taylor, 14 Chris, and Taylor is in the driver's seat because this Chandra's going to stick around. Chris has a Stitchwing. So how does Chris get out of this hole? How does he deal with this Chandra? Especially with Taylor having multiple removal spells in hand.
Right. Taylor does have an unlicensed disintegration as well as a fatal push in hand. And another land. I don't really think Chris has a very solid way to get out of this situation.
I mean, he's just to play a 4-drop, and
Pass the turn.
yeah, he can't Defiend it because Defiend's emerge costs 7 if I recall correctly. Taylor's going to take 1, go to 14. He's going to kill the unlicensed disintegration. He's going to push Chris down to 11 off the artifact trigger. Here comes the Toolcraft Exemplar. Here comes this trigger and a crew, and Chris is going to take 3 more. Taylor is just going to dome him, doesn't want the second Traffic Exemplar, so Chris goes into 9.
I feel like Taylor just wants to apply as much pressure as possible.
Yeah. I mean, Chris has the option here to end a turn, bring back the Stitchwing, which he's going to do, presumably discarding release, and yeah, release and land. And then he's able to Deep Fiend next turn. The draw was in the gate. In the meantime, there's an attack for 3 on Chandra, who will more than likely bite the dust on Chris's next turn thanks to the Deep Fiend as Taylor draws a replacement Chandra, so
Fair enough.
doesn't matter. But Chris does have the negate, at least, though.
Yes.
Taylor's going to attempt to attack with the Harvester, and Chris is like, yeah, I don't think so. Chris wisely using that Sanctum for mana, and then he's going to trigger it, so he's going to get Deep Fiend number 2.
So what other 3 targets do you tap here?
Probably the Concealed Courtyard, the Spire, and the
It looked like it was the Courtyard, a basic Swamp, and the Aether Hub?
I'm not sure why you tap the basic Swamp. Taylor still has a colored source of mana online with the Spire.
Right.
Not sure what he's playing around there. Like, if Taylor has a Disintegration, then he's just going to cast it with the he's going to float the mana with the trigger in the stack and just cast it.
Right. Taylor's hand is Chandra, Fatal Push, Plains.
Correct. And that's Anil Spires in the dust, so Chris goes on the 4. But more importantly, he has the negate back up for the second Chandra.
Yes.
Another Stitchwing that I draw from Chris. So I guess this is how he gets back into the game. He draws the negate back up and takes care of Taylor's board, as Taylor's draws have not been kind to him in any way, shape, or form.
No, they have not.
Value of the draw was... might have been what the doctor ordered, maybe. It'll force Chris's hand on the Deep Fiend. And Chris has no removal spells either, so it's going to stick around. But Taylor instead opting to go for the Chandra, and he's not going to like what he sees. And there's the gate. Taylor's face, if you could see it, is one of disgust, I assume, as he rests his shoulder on the table and firmly plants his face into his palm. And so Taylor Gunn, who was once at a commanding board state, is now going, how do I get out of this?
Shock. We're putting Chris to 1, presumably. Unless he wants to.
No, it's like Taylor is
Okay.
crewing and moving the combat, and Chris is wisely going, I don't want to go below 2 against this red deck. Or was that an attack?
I believe it was.
That was an... Oh. I'm not sure why Taylor would not attack with the flyer there. So Taylor's gonna eat. Here's a big dumb idiot that will fly. Taylor can't even cast Double Shock because he has no way to make red. He has no energy. No, well, he's a 1 artifact, so he can make 1 red. There's a card that can't block. Taylor has no energy, so he can't gain life with this Harvester. He's just going to pass it back. So Chris will draw. It was a Catharic Union.
He has another Stitchwing in his hand as well.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he can just hard cast it again. Doesn't that'll fit a push. Because it costs 5. Chris will defensively just pass it back.
That's
Taylor's
pretty good
drawing
draw.
the unlicensed Disintegration here. So here's the burn spell. He's going to attempt to kill the flyer, which
Kill
will
the
open up the
flyer.
lethal attack off the harvester.
Harvester, yep.
Yep. So Chris takes 3 goes to 1, and he's going to take it in the air. And Taylor Gunn, or from being a commanding position to a miserable position to winning. Logan Mitchell, you know all about the top of your deck, and that was the case of Taylor's top of the deck
absolutely.
finally cooperating with him after some awkward drawing lands revealing playable stuff off of Chandra.
Yes.
Then it helped too that Chris just never got really anything going. It was like he was missing certain cards.
Oh yeah, I feel like definitely he should have. Had he seen a Kozilek's return, the game might have been completely different.
Especially game 1, yeah.
Especially game 1, correct.
All right, we'll be back in about 24, 25 minutes, maybe. Standard likes to run long since this isn't modern, where people are just playing Death Shadow everywhere or burning people out. So when we come back, Logan Mitchell will thank you for stepping in for round 1. Kyle Kepi will be taking over for rounds 2 through 4.